Welcome to Fortune Forecast. I am your hostess, Daisy, and you are in my book playlist where we have been going through the book titled How to Unlock Your Subconscious Mind Through the Science of Mental Analysis. This book has two authors, a husband and wife team, Elsie Lincoln Benedict and Ralph Payne Benedict. The book was published in 1921. This has been an interesting book to read out loud, and I have found a little bit of complex issues as the authors had so many subsections within each lesson. I believe it was in their effort to make this content as lay as possible for the ordinary person to understand the psychology and the dynamics of the human mind as it interplays with the emotions in processing our daily events in life. And here, at this juncture, we find ourselves in the most awaited chapter, which the authors have kept alluding to. Let's move right in to Lesson 7, How to Attain Your Supreme Wish. We will start off with a poem by John Oxenham. The high soul goes the high way, and the low soul gropes the low, while in between on the misty flats the rest drift to and fro. But to every man there openeth a highway and a low, and every man decideth which way his soul shall go. How to attain your supreme wish. What more than anything else in the world do you want out of life? The answer you make in your secret soul to this question determines with utter, inexorable certainty what you are going to get. Not the details, they don't count, but ultimately, eventually, in your life as a whole. In this lesson is published for the first time the most recent and by far the most startling psychological discovery concerning the real secret of human happiness that has been made in the history of scientific research. It will show you to your complete satisfaction what has been holding you back and how to take your foot off the brake if you really desire to do so. It is going to take the props from under some of your pet alibis, but if you are the honest seeker after truth, which your study of mental analysis implies, you will be glad to part with them in return for the great self-revelation and self-realization this lesson gives you. Why you lost. This lesson will show you with intense clarity why you have lost many things you tried to get. It will show you where the fault lay and where it came from. It will show you who was to blame and why. It will show you how that person was to blame for your not accomplishing the thing you attempted. It will show you exactly what stood in your path and who put it there. It will show you how to take obstructions away from your path in future if you really desire to be free of them. It will also show you why and how others have failed. Why you won. This lesson will show you why you succeeded when you did succeed. It will show you why you seemed to do the biggest things most easily. Why you had, through it all, a sense of not really doing it yourself, but of being the instrument, as it were, of a person bigger and stronger than yourself. It will show you why you lived through some of your greatest tragedies in spite of the conviction that you never would. It shows the real, inner secret of all your own accomplishments and those of other people. It shows you the great law which has brought every personal success every personal achievement and every personal triumph that has ever been accomplished in this world. Why you did them. It shows you why you always find time, strength, and opportunity to do certain things and none for certain others. Why you give up certain ambitions and reconcile yourself to going without all kinds of things you had supposed paramount in your life while clinging tenaciously to others which your common sense tells you are inconsequential. It shows you why the people of the supposedly greatest gifts fail while others who started with few go to the top of life's ladder. It shows you why you have permitted some of your own greatest talents to lie undeveloped while working hard to succeed at something for which you seem to have no ability. Clues to your own mysteries. You have sometimes wondered why you simply could not go on with a thing which you knew was for your own best good. You have marveled at your capacity for making the same kind of mistake over and over. You have become disgusted and often discouraged with yourself for the inexplicable reactions certain things and especially certain work cause in you. You have thought of all these and 1,000 other self-mysteries and either arrived at some theory that appeals to your particular type and temperament, or you have given it up thinking and perhaps saying, "There is no accounting for us. A human being is a conglomeration of enigmas." Life, a mystifying drama. The average individual is like a child seeing a moving picture for the first time. He sees an amazing, mystifying, myriad section drama unwind before his eyes. To him, it is the realest of reality. All is as it seems on the screen, and all arises from and returns to the unseen, the mysterious. The average unthinking individual lives in a maze of moving mysteries which he calls his life. The unexpected is always happening to him. The expected and longed for happens but seldom, and when it does, he cannot see how nor why, so is unable in any way to repeat it. He no more attempts to understand the laws back of his life dream than the 3-year-old child at the movies attempts to figure out how pictures are made. He swallows it, enjoys what he can, registers verbal disapproval when things go wrong, but sits and takes it, like the babe in the theater. He feels helpless, often hopeless, but it is too big a tangle to understand or straighten out. So there he waits, watching his life story play itself out as it will. Making your own movies. This lesson is to prove to you that your life movie doesn't just happen, that you are not at the mercy of fate, that you and you alone make your own life drama. It is going to show you that the play in which you are acting the life picture you see unwinding before your eyes each day is based on laws as sane, simple, and scientific as those back of the making of a motion picture. It is going to do for you, in explanation, what we would be doing for the child if we took him out of the theater whose pictures he had always supposed to be magic made, and showed him the camera, the studio, the actors and actresses, the stages and directors, scenarios, lighting effects, the mass of natural forces through whose application every picture is made. We hope this lesson will do for you much more than that. We shall show you how, certain every day, every operative natural laws are behind every individual drama. How everything in your life is made, directly or indirectly, consciously or unconsciously, by you through your use or misuse of these same natural laws. We are going to show you how your pictures are made, the machinery back of every movie you have ever put on in your own life, why you played the role you did, and why you are playing, at this moment, the very part you are. It is our sincere hope that you who read these pages will, from this day onward, apply these laws in your own life, for by so doing you shall attain your deepest and dearest desires. A law-ruled world. We, like the babe at the movies, live in the delusion that things are only what they seem, a maelstrom in which we are caught, a moving mirage that whirls and swirls and carries us on against our will. Science shows us that everything in the universe has a cause, and that the same cause always and invariably brings the same results. Nothing just happens. There are no accidents. All occurs in accordance with divine, unchanging law. The world we live in today is exactly the same world the caveman dwelt in. But civilized man, through a working knowledge of law, has brought out of these unseen and hitherto undreamed of forces the things that make life livable, beautiful, uplifting. The caveman called the lightning a god of wrath and fell down in fear when his flashes illumined the sky. The civilized man, through a study and understanding of law, brings that same force to bear on his problems, and with it lights the world, heats his home, travels around the globe, and talks without wires, from one end of the earth to the other. In the last 20 years, science has been discovering that human health and disease human success and failure, human happiness and unhappiness, all the problems of human life are equally controlled by law. That man is a part of, not apart from natural and divine law. That the laws of the mind, body, and spirit of every individual are ever operating and are ever bringing to him, in exact accordance with these laws, the things that come out in his life. The stars shine out across the wide domed space, faring their fleeting journey night and day, each keeping to its measured time and place, according to the law each must obey. And stars and souls, rose, bloom, and planet world, obey the wondrous law that makes the world. Conscious wishes. Every man and woman has many conscious wishes. They are in the surface mind, the busy brain that handles the affairs of the moment and the events of the day. You have a conscious wish to arrive at the office in time to look through your mail before the opening hour. You have another conscious wish to remember a fact, statement, the amount of that check you must write. You have thousands of these conscious wishes during the course of a busy day. They pass into and out of your mind without much ado. Conscious standards. As a result of your training, education, environment, experience, type, personality, and several other things, you have acquired certain conscious standards of what you ought to do and be and accomplish. of what you owe the world, society, and your fellow man, of the right and square way to treat people, of honesty, justice, fair play, of how much and how well a man ought to work to get on in life, of how you ought to act under all conditions, of what you ought to acquire, achieve, accomplish, of the heights to which you ought to rise, the influence ought to wield, the prestige you ought to have, the good name, fame, or glory you ought to win. In short, you have builded into the conscious mind of yours whole sets of ironclad ideals which you aspire to live up to. Whether you have lived up to them in the past has depended on just one thing which you had in those past years. Whether you are living up to them now and in what proportion all depends on how much of that same thing you have today. Whether you will, in the coming years, live up to these standards, achieve these things you consciously strive for, will depend upon how much you understand, amend, and utilize that same thing. That thing which determines it all, which has actuated directly or indirectly every act of your life, is your supreme subconscious wish. One of the most recent and revolutionizing discoveries of science is that every human being has, in addition to these temporary conscious wishes and conscious standards, one wish which overtops all others, a wish which is often secret and sometimes submerged, but which saturates his subconscious mind. This wish is never for one specific thing, nor does it deal with details. It is not for certain things, nor even for specific people in our lives, but for a condition in life, an environment, a kind of expression, the untrammeled satisfaction of a basic instinct, the achieving of a great ambition in some general direction, the attainment of a beautiful character, the acquirement of riches, or the winning of an immortal name. And sometimes, in fact, all too often, the secret supreme wish is for none of these uplifting things, but for others of a far different nature. Life builded around the wish. The second great discovery, which is revolutionizing the science of psychology, is that every human being builds his life around his supreme subconscious wish. Some build their lives around the supreme wish consciously, others unconsciously or subconsciously. But each is building every year, every day, every hour, directly or indirectly, toward the gratification of his deepest desire. The average individual has never heard of this urge at whose behest he lays practically every plan of his life. He is often unaware of this intense yearning which dictates the direction of his energies, predetermines the trend of his activities, characterizing every week of his life, actuates the manifold expressions of himself, and which prejudices, pulls, and pushes him in directions serving its purpose. But this does not alter the fact that it is there, and that it wields an influence upon our lives, which, in the end, makes or mars them. The weak link. We often wonder why a promising man with brains, education, advantages, good looks, and every possible chance makes such a mess of his life. Especially do we wonder why this intelligent individual should make the same kind of mistakes over and over, permitting this one species of weakness to ruin his existence. He is so unusual in so many ways, we say. Why can't he see that it is only this one thing that is wrecking his chances? Isn't it too bad that a fine young man like that, with such splendid qualities, should permit one little thing to destroy him? In every such case, and there are many of them, the individual's supreme subconscious wish is for something which the giving in to this weakness brings him. One woman's wish. A woman who was well known as a writer of superior magazine articles was an outspoken radical. She lived in a suffrage state, so had a vote and cast it consistently for a radical ticket. She believed in birth control and declared that if she ever married, she would not feel entitled to bring children into the world, not only because it was, as she was fully convinced, too cruel to give them a chance, but because her mother had died in an insane asylum and her father in a tuberculosis hospital. She lived in Arizona herself as a result of a prolonged siege of the disease which had taken away one lung, but which seemed now to be under control. This woman had a most unusual mind. Her conversation was as interesting as a play. Her writing was scintillating and extraordinarily clever. She was widely read, a deep student, and a most convincing speaker on these very subjects upon which she held such radical views. She finally married. Her husband did not care for children, but once every year for 12 years now, she has presented him with a son or daughter, and once with both. All her friends say, "What in the world has come over Agnes? What became of her convictions?" The answer is not far to seek. Agnes, under all her conscious attitudes, had a deep, devouring, desperate desire. Far back of and behind and beyond these surface things was a supreme subconscious wish. That wish to be the mother of a large family. Reason? Common sense. Horse sense and her sense of justice told her that she, in whose veins ran two taints, had little right to jeopardize innocent lives. Intelligence and human sympathy told her that life, never easy for the strongest, would be cruelly savage to the handicapped. Study and thought convinced her conscious mind that one hampered as she was might better be educating the world towards social and political betterment than adding to its population. But the moment opportunity offered, away went every conscious conviction, every standard of the years, and in came the subconscious urge. It took possession, or rather, it kept possession, for it was the working out of that old subconscious longing which caused her to marry at all. And this brings us to the third great discovery. You get what you want most. This newest, hitherto unpublished and most far-reaching of all the discoveries concerning the laws of human life is that every human being gets his supreme subconscious wish. At first glance, he may question this, but 5 minutes of honest self-inventory serves to convince every person that it is literally, utterly true. You, for instance, may say, "That can't be true. Why, I wanted a college education more than I wanted anything else in the world. I have wanted it for years, and I have failed to get it." You are sincere in saying this, just as you have been sincere all the time in telling the same thing to yourself and your friends. But if you will look deep into your own heart, you will find that at least one other desire, perhaps a dozen of them, takes precedence in your secret list of this desire for a college education. You may never have stopped to think of it before, and the probabilities are you have said it so often you fully believe it. But when you come right down to it, there are several things you want more than you want that college education. Yes, I know, something was always happening to prevent your going to college. There always is something happening to prevent things, and it prevents them too, all but your real wish. When things happen to that, you go right over them. You find a way out. You do something to counteract it. You invariably ride over the difficulty and do it. From observation. During the past 10 years, at least 100 men and women have told us the only thing on earth they wanted most was to go to college, but it had been impossible. What were the psychological facts? One young man who vehemently denied at first that he had ever desired anything as much as a college education finally said that he believed he wanted to get married more than he wanted an education. This was the reason for his marrying instead of going to college. Another, who was certain that nothing had ever superseded his desire to go to college, realized what he had really wanted most was to travel. He hoped to go abroad and had decided a college education would help to give him a keener appreciation of the things he expected to see in his travels. When he was given a position which took him several times a year to London and Paris, he subconsciously gave up on the college idea, though continuing consciously to think and to declare that it was a great disappointment. These are not deliberate deceptions we practice upon ourselves and our friends. We know very little about our real selves until we study the human sciences. The result is that only an occasional individual ever meets the stranger that lives in his skin. What you really want. A man once said to us, "I cannot believe that every person gets his supreme subconscious wish. I have loved a woman for 8 years. My subconscious wish was to have her. I haven't gotten her. And what is more, it doesn't look as though I ever would. Yet I have tried with all my might to win her." We explained to him this other great law. Our supreme subconscious wish is never for any specific thing or person, but for a condition, a certain avenue of self-expression. The supreme wish saturates the subconscious mind, but the subconscious mind never knows nor cares anything about details nor the fine points concerned with methods. All it knows is overwhelming desire for a certain kind of satisfaction for your personality as a whole. The conscious mind supplies methods, means, the vehicles for realizing these subconscious desires. Your special train. These two great minds of ours may be likened to the equipment of a freight train. The subconscious mind supplies the steam, the going power, the forces necessary to your arriving at a certain destination. It is unlike steam in this, however, it knows the general direction in which you want to go, and it is concentrated on your getting there. But it allows the engineer, your conscious mind, to select the crew, the paraphernalia for the journey, and to take whichever one of the track it prefers. But it gives you no peace save when you are traveling in the general direction of its and your subconscious aim. It stays out of sight, but goads, drives, and lashes you whenever you start down a side track, and gives you its full help only when you get back on the main line. What he really wanted. What this man really wanted was not this nor any one specific woman, but some general kind of self-expression for his personality, which he considered the possession of her would make possible for him. In other words, she was what every individual is to the subconscious mind of his lover, the means to an end. No adult man or woman lives who subconsciously loves another man or woman. The subconscious knows no individuals as such. It is not concerned with the personnel of anything, only with results. Your subconscious knows no one but you. It has no desire, no religion, no aim, no interest, save the accomplishment of your wants. You are its world, its master, its adored. The result of the universe is, to your subconscious mind, only a place in which you function, a stage on which you act, the world in which you live and move and have your being. Self and the subconscious. Where do I come in? Is the first question your mind puts to everything you ever hear. Everything that is broached to you, everything that comes within the range of your consciousness. If you cannot see wherein you are going to get self-expression of some sort, you stay away from it. Even our most generous acts are performed more for our own self-expression than for the persons for whom we do them. The man who gives his money to the poor and dies penniless has not really sacrificed himself. His supreme subconscious desire was for that kind of self-expression. He was happiest that way and did it because he could find more happiness in that than in keeping it for himself. In other words, he bought with his money the thing that appealed most to him, and though in so doing he proved himself a higher, finer nature than the average, and deserves our admiration and respect as a Superman, he is not to be credited with self-sacrifice. What we call self-sacrifice is always the sacrifice of something the individual wants for something he wants more, therefore is not self-sacrifice at all. Supermen and Superwomen. The big thing we must not overlook in this new understanding is that the individual who prefers to use his money this way, who gets his greatest happiness out of helping others, is a highly evolved individual far ahead of his time, spiritual in the highest, finest sense, sympathetic, superhuman. You need not regret that you can no longer credit him with self-sacrifice. This kind of human being is far more admirable than one who would reverse God's first law of self-preservation. We know it is God's law because He puts it into every living organism. Your first duty is to yourself, to make yourself the highest, best, biggest, and broadest being you can be. And the proof of this lies in every living thing in the universe. You can never help humanity very much till you can walk alone. Your first duty, therefore, to the world and to yourself is to learn to stand alone. Don't lop and lean and loll on other people. First, develop your own backbone. Then, as you go along, help everybody, inspire everybody, uplift everybody, and don't forget to start. Don't make the mistake that thousands of well-meaning people have of waiting till your own life is perfect before beginning to give others a lift. You will pass this way but once, so scatter real help as you travel, but keep your life belt on. Keep your head up, keep your eyes open, your heart gentle, but keep climbing. What Mark Twain said: if you would like to see what a great thinker says about these real human motives, read the book Mark Twain wrote, and which he directed, should not be published till 5 years after his death. What is man? In it, he shows you, in better words than we can, how every act of every human being is for the contentment of his own spirit. The real reason. What about the man who thought his supreme subconscious wish had been for the woman he had courted 8 years and didn't get? He loved her with the only force an adult loves with, his conscious mind. His supreme subconscious wish was for this particular kind of self-expression, which he consciously decided such a mate would give him. Consciously, therefore, he loved her personally, individually, devotedly. His subconscious mind, which can love none other than the person to whom it belongs, had no interest in her save as she promised to gratify that supreme subconscious wish for this particular kind of self-expression. That this was precisely the situation was proved recently, when this very man was married to another woman, much like the one he had wooed so long, and who he now feels he loved more than he loved the first. I realize fully now, he said not long ago, that my supreme subconscious wish has always been for the kind of home life these women would make possible. Any woman who gave evidence of fulfilling this wish would have gotten a proposal out of this man. Why and whom we love. Though it is a startling and to many a shocking fact, it is nevertheless true that the people who love are desired, not for themselves but for ourselves, and loved to the extent that they directly or indirectly aid in our own self-expression. All of which proves again how the beloved ego in each of us makes or mars our world. The child loves best the parent who most aids it in expressing itself. The man loves best those women who aid most in his self-expression. Women love best those men who aid them most in their self-expression. Every unmated person is seeking, as we have seen, a lover who recapitulates the symbol of his first great love. But such a one, even if found, will never bring him continued happiness unless he be, in addition to this symbol, of a biological type which automatically aids in the self-expression of his mate. When a man finds a woman who recreates his love symbol, he can love her instantaneously. But if her biological type is such that she cannot aid in his continued self-expression, he will eventually tire of her. The more she obstructs his self-expression, the sooner will he tire. If she not only refuses to yield herself as an aid to the expression of his type and subconscious wish, but insists upon changes in him which enable her to express her own, he will gradually grow to dislike her. If she keeps it up, he will ultimately, subconsciously, hate her, though she be the mother of his children. Types and marriage. The matter of biological types is too extensive to go into here and has been fully explained in our course, The 5 Human Types. The present course deals with man's subconscious mind, but if you're interested to further understand human types and their effect upon our love life, see Types That Should and Should Not Marry Each Other, Lesson 6 of the above mentioned course. Why people do not marry. Whenever an individual goes through life without marrying, it is not because he does not desire a mate, but because marriage with any of the people he has seen would, in his opinion, interfere with his supreme subconscious wish. Every unmated person desires a mate, But if he desires something else more, that is, if the desire for a mate is not his supremest desire, he will not marry until he finds someone who he is convinced will not interfere with his supreme subconscious wish. Why others marry? Many men and women mate with one who does not remind them of their subconscious love symbol, and they marry knowing this. Whenever this happens, it is because the finding of a mate who shall repeat this love symbol is not this person's supreme wish. He feels that the one he has chosen will aid in that supreme wish, whatever it may be, and strikes a compromise. Since that supreme wish is for something which to him is more desirable than the possession of an ideal mate, he sacrifices the lesser to the greater. You do the same thing in every decision of your life. Why you give up things? You want many things, but you always give up those you want less for those you want most. Thus, in the by and large of your life, you do what you want to do. You get the things you really want. If you are unsuccessful, it is because there was one or many things you wanted more than you wanted success. Look back over your life and you will say that in your life as a whole, you have been doing those things which, in general, appeal to you more than the kinds of things you refused to do. Perhaps you want money and yet are poor. But no one ever had a supreme subconscious wish for money. The subconscious, as has been stated, knows nothing of things, details, or the concrete. It knows only certain fundamentals, those big, basic urges of your personality. It knows many of these, but takes it upon itself to fulfill in your life the one which above all others you want most. It has never heard of money and never can, for money as money is nothing but worthless chunks of metal and useless pieces of paper. Even your conscious mind, which does know and deals with money, does not want money, but only the self-expression which money would bring. Since the subconscious gets for you whatever you want most, if the thing you want most is of such a nature that you have got to have money to get it, your subconscious will find a way for you to make money. It can find the means to any end you supremely subconsciously demand. It will do so by keeping your eyes open for opportunities furthering this end. It deals only with ultimates. Money, which has less intrinsic and ultimate value than almost anything with which we come in contact, is never in any man's supreme subconscious wish as such. It is not even in the supreme wish of the miser, but is desired and obtained by him wholly and solely as a means to protection. The miser is always the result of a fixed fear, the fear of poverty, the product of a poverty-stricken childhood. But because the fear attitude prevents great results in any direction, the miser, with all his skimping, never makes a great deal of money. No self-made millionaire in the world ever cared for money as money. He had some kind of supreme subconscious wish requiring money for its full expression. It is precisely this which every rich person will tell you drove him to make money. Once it is made, very few very rich people care for money. They conserve it only insofar as its conservation serves that same original wish. Fame through fortune. Here is a man whose supremest subconscious wish is for fame. His subconscious, which knows and remembers everything about him, contains the necessary elements and brings them to the surface as they are needed. He has certain gifts, talents, abilities. He lacks certain others. The quickest and surest route to the materialization of his supreme wish is through these talents. His subconscious suggests these routes. If these talents are superior, he will rise to fame through them. The greater these talents, the greater the urge to express them, and the greater his ability to serve, entertain, amuse, or enlighten the world. In return, the world applauds him, gives him fame, pays him well, and his supreme wish is gratified. People are always glad to pay for what they like. The public is always generous to the able man. Whether or not he cares very much about money, he is glad to have the public's money purely as a proof that he has succeeded, that his ego has satisfied itself, proven to itself that it can do this thing. Ambitious Americans. In America, success is all too often measured by money. Since money is the great American standard, and since every ambitious individual desires to live up to the standards of his environment, the ambitious American is compelled to seek money. Let a man with a message attempt to carry that message to the American public. Though it be the greatest message in the world, that public will not ask, "How much good does this man do?" It will not even ask, "What is his message about?" This public will ask about one question. That question will consist of 6 words. How much money does he make? Though you produce the greatest thing that has yet been produced, the American public will have none of it, nor you, if you cannot make it pay financially. In self-defense, therefore, any person who has a great message to give to America is compelled to make that message pay. He must have the confidence of the public, as does any man who aspires to help the world. It is inconceivable to the average American that you could have anything worthwhile unless you are making a financial success of your life. Instead of railing at the one who makes a great deal of money, use that energy to re-educate the public if you are really in earnest. If you want money. If you want money, you must do what every person did who ever made money. Produce something the world wants and knows it wants. The world is always willing and glad to pay for what it really wants. But it is determined not to pay for what it does not want just because you want or need the money. And you can't blame it, can you? Remember, you can only get money via the world. For it, you must give value received. To do that easiest and quickest, you must make your supreme subconscious wish into a real desire to produce something the world needs. Once you have done this, the same forces which have always and will forever bring your supreme wish to pass in your life will point the way. Your successful subconscious. Let us repeat. Your supreme subconscious wish dictates your life. It permits nothing seriously to interfere with its materialization. It is autocratic, implacable. What you want most of all, as a condition in your life, it will get for you. In the getting, you are often compelled to forego many of hundred of things you want, but want less. Your subconscious causes you to sacrifice these many things, and all things, if necessary, to the accomplishment of this supremest desire. You must relinquish this, sacrifice that, forego the other. You feel all this in the depths of you. You do not like giving up the eating of your cake, but if you want the cake more than you want the pleasure of eating it, you will not eat it. Your subconscious and supreme wish will not permit you to. You made this choice yourself. Your subconscious takes you at your word and not only relieves you of most of the labor by performing it itself, but refuses to permit you to greatly interfere with its activities. Your conscious mind may falter and fail, but your subconscious, once saturated with your supremest desire, is always successful. Subconscious of the successful. The most successful men and women, once they have decided on their supreme aim, automatically adapt themselves to this great law. Every successful person that ever lived gave up many things for the sake of his big ambition. At first, he did so consciously. He had many backslidings. But as time went on, his conscious and subconscious minds worked in such unison that his subconscious sentinel learned at last habitually to turn away from the door of his mind the things that would interfere with the big desire, without his ever being conscious of making a decision. This is the secret of the great concentration, the one-pointed mind, the keen thought capacity of every successful person. His mind is not necessarily superior to that of the average man, but he does what the average man fails to do, keeps the decks clear and ready for business. He keeps out of his mind, automatically, habitually, consciously, and unconsciously, the thieves that would steal his mental energy. After a time, his subconscious becomes so expert that it short-circuits most of the wasteful, inimical things that are headed for his mental house, thus conserving his mentality for the constructive, the worthwhile, the big thing in that man's life. The subconscious performs, in addition to all its other services, the function of an expert private secretary guarding the front office of the mind. He permits no visitor to interrupt the president in his private office when he is at work. Thus is the president, his conscious mind, enabled to think out the plans, the ways, means, and methods for making him a success. Your wish is a want. The reason your subconscious attains for you your supremest wish is that this deepest desire of your life is not a mere wish at all, but a goading, driving, overwhelming want. It is necessary up to this point, because of the inadequacy of language, to call this a wish. But from this moment onward, we shall call it what it is, the supreme subconscious want. There is a world of difference between wishing and wanting. When you wish for a thing, you get it, sometimes. When you want a thing, you always get it. For a want is not a mere surface feeling, but a deep, desperate craving that demands not things nor people nor trifling details, but great general outlets of self-expression. You must satisfy the greatest one or die. This supreme want is far more important than life itself to many human beings. These are the supreme successes. They had rather die than miss their goal. The man who wants a thing more than he wants life is filled with an enthusiasm so irresistible that it literally burns away all obstacles from his pathway. What and why is the suicide? The psychology of the suicide has been till now a mystery. No clue to the motive, say a man's friends when they can find no cause for his desire to die. How seldom does the world ever guess the real reason for those sufferings which to rack a human soul that it relinquishes life rather than bear them. How seldom indeed does the man himself know the subconscious source of this urge, beside which life itself seems trivial. Yet today we know that every person who commits suicide does so only after he becomes overpowered with the conviction that he can never achieve his supreme subconscious want. The woman suicide. The woman who commits suicide because her lover had deserted her does so because she is convinced that she has lost the only person through whom her demand for a particular kind of self-expression can be met. She does not think this out. All she knows is that she wants this particular kind of mate, or the particular life that he can give her. Her subconscious want is so strong that it has risen to the surface of her conscious mind and is there recognized by her for what it is, the one thing which makes life worthwhile. Her error lies in the delusion that this individual is the only individual through whom she can attain this particular kind of self-expression, this particular response. Many a woman who has attempted suicide and been saved by resuscitation or because the bullet went wild of its mark has lived to realize that this man was, to her subconscious self, only the means to an end, that her fixation upon him resulted from this subconscious certainty of his exclusive ability to furnish her with an avenue for self-expression. She learns later that the world contains others who will serve this purpose as well, many of whom are far superior to the man she once thought indispensable to her existence. The money suicide. Women commit suicide because of love troubles, men because of money troubles, say the statistics. Here again we see the working of the supreme want. The supreme subconscious want of woman is more often bound with love than that of men, and, of necessity, must be. She is the mother of the race, the propagation of which depends largely on her love life. But the support of the home, the securing of life's necessities, is more often man's mission than women's, and its full expression depends indirectly upon money and the success which money implies. When a man commits suicide because of the money troubles, it is never because he feels he cannot live without the money, but because he feels he cannot live and face this disgrace, humiliation, or shame the money loss would mean. In every such case, his supreme subconscious want is for something which only money, directly or indirectly, can provide. We choose the lesser evil always, or rather, we choose the evil which to us appears to be the lesser. The standard is the supreme subconscious want. Everything is measured by its capacity to further that want. We make our own choices. Each individual who is not feeble-minded determines the course of his own life, and does so as much by the things he unconsciously leaves undone as by the things he consciously, volitionally chooses to do. Why are we unhappy? If each of us is getting his supreme subconscious want, why are so many of us unhappy? The answer is evident. This supreme subconscious want in each of us is a primal, instinctive thing. It may be found in high, recent, and civilized instincts, and often is, but much more often the deepest desire of the average organism is for the gratification of a primitive, uncivilized instinct, urge, or tendency. These primitive instincts are out of place in the world of today. Our training is against them. Our cultivated ideals are against them. Society in general is against them. But the law of the supreme subconscious want is immutable. If this primitive thing is what he really wants more than anything else in the world, the law brings it to pass in his life. If it is too far removed from modern instincts, his family, his friends, and the world will call him a coward, a ne'er-do-well, a beast, or a criminal, depending on the particular instinct which, out of the primitive group, is most overdeveloped in him. All the while, he will be wishing to live up to his higher instincts. He has many others of high order. One of these, and it exists in every human being, is the instinct of approbation. He wishes the approval of his fellows. He wishes to do and be and have the things that make them like, admire, respect, and follow him. But his supreme want must and will express itself. All its enemies must go by the board. He makes excuses. He equivocates. He apologizes. He tries to justify his failures to the world, whose opinion he so much values. Most of all, he suffers. But he feels that he suffers less than he would were he to give up his supremest want. So he pays the price. Sympathy, not censure. How sad a sight is this suffering man, existing in the 20th century but living in primitive ages. What a contrast to that fortunate one whose supreme subconscious want is in harmony with modern standards, whose deepest desire happens to be toward the production of those things the world needs. Give him the laurels he has won, but don't forget to give to the other the sympathy and understanding to which every unsuccessful soul is entitled. Through this you may reach his feeling subconscious mind, and once there you may, with patience and earnestness, help him to change the subconscious desire which has ruled and ruined his life. How to help humanity. Parents, teachers, preachers, the whole world may talk, argue, beseech, implore, preach to the weak of the desirability of a better things. But you will never help him appreciably until you induce him to change his supreme subconscious desire. The trouble with most of those who have tried to make men see the error of their ways was not lack of arguments, intellect, nor faithfulness. Thousands of high-minded men and women who earnestly desired to help others have had all these and failed to understand the ineffectiveness of their efforts. The explanation lies in human psychology. Reasons, arguments, facts, and illustrations are things which appeal not to the subconscious, but to the conscious mind. To change a man's supreme subconscious want from low to high, from weak to strong, from evil to good, you must reach his subconscious mind. To reach any individual's subconscious mind, you must talk the language of the subconscious, which is not thought, but feeling. As stated many times before in this course, the subconscious mind is not a thinking, intellectual mind, but a feeling, instinctive mind. It is not appealed to by reason, but by the spirit of a thing. It is deaf to thoughts, but keenly alert to emotions. You will never be able to help humanity rise to better things until you learn to deal with men and women from your heart to theirs. The spirit of sincerity. This is the real explanation of the magic of sincerity. When a man is sincere, we do not so much think it as feel it. His heart is right, and our own communes with it. Words and phrases are weak, thin, and pale beside that emotional certainty. To convince, to inspire, to help another, to change his subconscious content, you must feel what you are saying. You must mean it. Your interest must be real. It must be genuine. To help yourself. To help yourself, you must do exactly the same thing in the same way and with the same feeling. You must think of yourself as two persons, which in reality you are, the weak self and the strong. Put your strong self at the helm. Make up your mind that that strong self is going to dictate your life hereafter. Treat your weaker self as though it were another individual, an individual whose faults threaten to ruin your life. you are going to be fair to this individual, to recognize that he is the product of primitive ages and therefore not responsible for this weakness. But you are not going to allow him to wreck your 20th century life. You must first want to help yourself. Then you must realize that you can remake your life. You must feel it, believe it, know it. You want happiness, not mere gratification of an instinct. And it is happiness you must have to stay well, to achieve, to realize your best, to really live. If your subconscious want clashes with your ideals, you must and can change that subconscious want for a better one. Can it be done, you say? It has, and it is being done every day by thousands of men and women whose instincts are just as out of date as yours. You have a brain, a mind, a spirit. It is for you to decide whether you will live in the basement of your lower nature or in the sun parlors of your highest self. All these instincts, including the one that has been ruining your life, are under full control of your conscious mind. At any moment, you desire to use that power. Until recent years, science had not discovered what it was that was wrecking human lives. And only recently did we discover how to remedy it when we did know. It is only just now that we have discovered the laws given in this lesson whereby we can easily and quickly remake our lives. The greatest of all these discoveries is that you can change your subconscious want. You can change the content of your great subconscious mind and direct its forces toward the achievement of any goal you desire. If you will have faith, patience, and even a little determination, you can drain out of it the things you do not wish to keep and fill its batteries with the positive power you need for the accomplishment of your highest aims. To change your subconscious want. To change your subconscious want from evil to good, from destructive to constructive, you need only to use the shortest, surest, swiftest inlet by which anything enters your subconsciousness. Your conscious mind. The conscious mind is the president of your corporation. It has the brains and intelligence fitted to cope with modern life and your personal problems. Your subconscious is but the great factory which carries out the president's orders. It is obedient to his will and his demands, exactly as the privates are obedient to the commander-in-chief of an army. The average man or woman makes a failure of his life because he allows his conscious mind to abdicate, after which the mob in his primitive subconscious mutinies. Stop wallowing in the trenches of your subconscious and take command of that army. Consciously decide what it is that your standards demand, and then apply the great laws to enforce your orders exactly as a general relies upon the laws of court-martial when necessary with his army. Making life a masterpiece. After you have decided what your standards and ideals demand, after you have realized that you, like thousands of others, can get whatever you want, whenever that want becomes the supreme one in your subconscious mind, set about changing the old want for the new. You can do so by the very simple but stupendous law of suggestion. That law is this: whatever your conscious mind affirms, visualizes, and suggests to the subconscious will build into your life. Suggest to your own subconscious that this thing which you want, you are going to have, that nothing shall prevent it, that it is already coming true in your life. Whenever a thought to the contrary enters your mind, eject it, not by force, but by turning your attention to the thing you want. Talk, walk, act, speak, and think as you believe that better self will when full grown. Because the subconscious mind cannot resist repeated suggestion from you, it will begin to take on the new qualities. You will see some of its results within a day, more in a week, many in a month, and in a year will have so greatly altered your life, capacities, and powers that yours will be a new world. Your new and strong subconscious want, becoming at last embedded in the subconscious, will, of its own force, bring itself to pass in your life exactly as the old and outgrown desires once did. Thus will you attain your supreme wish. Thus will you be happy. Thus and thus only will you become good and great and gloriously strong. Thus you may and shall make of your life a masterpiece. And this concludes Lesson 7 and the conclusion of the book titled How to Unlock Your Subconscious Mind Through the Science of Mental Analysis. Hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for joining me on this read, and I do look forward to your comments.